Hello, welcome to 4 Minutes Closer to God. My name is Doug. Today I wanted to discuss Genesis 1:1 and 1:2 as an example of how to interpret the Bible. I've had a lot of issue with recent interpreters and people on podcasts and the like using these verses to say that there were pre-Adamic races by way of a gap between Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In Genesis 1:2, now the earth was formless and empty, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Inserting a gap between those two allows for all the age of fossils, the long age of the earth as understood by modern science, and the development of races, say Neanderthals and Denisovans and Cro-Magnon, up to modern humanity. And so inserted between those two is the idea of this fall of Satan, who crashed down to earth and ruined God's good creation. And so God had to restore it, and that would be the time of Adam and Eve, re-perfecting the earth that had been ruined by Satan's fall. So Satan's fall we see in Isaiah 14, Ezekiel 28, and then Revelation 12. So the understanding of Revelation 12 is that at the beginning, the primordial creation of celestial beings, Satan fell to earth with a third of the angels. Problem is, Revelation 12's context is at the birth of the Messiah. So Revelation 12:1 and 2 talks about a child being born at 6:20 p.m. to 7:40 p.m. on September 11th, 3 BC. And so Genesis 1:1 and 1:2, the people who have inserted this gap there are going against the Hebrew grammar because it's unstated what the time frame was in Genesis 1, and then the immediate Vav disjunctive that follows in Genesis 1:2 eliminates any possibility for there to have been a gap between the two. These gap theorists will say that it was ruined. The earth became formless and empty. And from Isaiah, we know that God did not make the earth to be formless and empty. The restoration that comes with Adam and Eve's story and what followed, and if there are pre-Adamic races who existed there prior to Adam and Eve's creation, then Cain, when he was banished from the Eden territory, would have had someone to go to. But the understanding from regular creationists is that Adam and Eve had other children, and because the genetic makeup was not mutated in such a way that they couldn't marry a sister. One of the other problems of the ruin and restoration theory is that there was death prior to Adam sinning. Then that verse has to be reinterpreted in a way that allows for all these ancient fossils to have lived, died, and the cancers and illnesses that they show, and the human remains that have that similar problem, all happened before sin entered the world in a way that God would condemn it. Jesus would need to come and propitiate our sin and get rid of the guilt of it. My advice with respect to studying the Bible and learning how best to interpret it is to get to know some Hebrew and Greek. Also, test the interpretation that you're hearing, be a good Berean, and learn how to read in context. That's so important. One of the problems with the gap theory is not knowing the Hebrew grammar, and that makes it impossible for the gap theory to fit in there. There's no space available. And then also, it is possible that the earth became formless and empty, but that's not the easiest or most natural reading of that verse, Genesis 1:2. Also, tohu vabohu indicates an original kind of lump of clay setting that then was formed and filled by God, and it wasn't left formless and empty. So be careful who you listen to, test them, and also make sure that you get a good, say, interlinear translation of the Bible so that you can see how particular words are being used in your favorite podcaster or YouTube person. So check my work, and God bless you.